Because I can tell you, for nursing, no state in the union is it mandatory that you be certified in nursing to practice. None. So your profession is actually ahead of nursing.
I think as healthcare workers, we're blessed to be in a situation where we're in a facility where we work, and if we're able to be a patient in that facility, unlike the general public, we know what's happening in that facility. We know the doctors, we know the OR staff, we know the anesthesiologists, we know everybody that's there. And for lack of a better term, you essentially are a VIP patient, which is what I think every patient should be, not just those of us that are working in a facility, but I think that helps alleviate a lot of anxiety.
So just because it says single use doesn't actually mean it can only be used for a single use. It just means the manufacturer chose not to do the cleaning validation. And as we talked about before, but this third party or commercial reprocessor has come along and gotten an FDA clearance if required to do just that.
What he volunteered to do was go in and be that person for the hospital at no charge to the hospital for a year till they got their budget right. He looked after the telescopes, washed the telescopes, put the telescopes, handed them to the people to be sterile, and in that entire year, they didn't break a single telescope.
It's about time that we have this type of document that really levels the playing field and sets the standard. But then yet, when you're trying to apply this type of standard to different healthcare settings that were never used to being held to this level of care, I think the requirements held within that were concerning about how to implement them, because not only do we talk about the steps of scope reprocessing, but we talk about personnel considerations and education, training, competencies, certification requirements, workflow within a reprocessing area, design of the department, facilities, everything combined into one document. So I think for some facilities, it might have been overwhelming to digest that information, because this is a big document and so much information to be contained in it.
I did speak to a large device manufacturer earlier this year that told us they have $200 million of surgical field inventory that is unaccounted for. And I kind of, was taken aback, but then asked a little bit more. And he said that those items are on hospital shelves or even in rep trunks, where that ends up contributing to the cost of the implants that we end up putting in patients. Because you have to manage all of this inventory to ensure that you can sell your implants as well.
In order for me to properly support you as an ambulatory surgery center and having the instrumentation that you need, making sure that they're in good working order and you have replacements when you need them, is you need to give me some oversight, so to speak, on the instrumentation. That's taken me quite a while to build that trust with my co-leaders on the ASC side of trusting me that my department will take care of this.
I love this topic in the same way that I love the topic of stainless steel brushes, because it's all about education. It's understanding the why behind what you're doing. The first thing I want to point out is that no cleaning can happen on the clean side. That completely negates the purpose of the clean side. If you're cleaning on the clean side, it's now the dirty side.
The work is not going to go away. And only a short-sighted administrator or leader will start cutting back on those people that are so critical to eliminating the risk and assuring the safety from infectious disease. You'd be an idiot to get rid of those people.
Augmented reality also allows you to create a telepresence link where you can link up directly with the service center and talk to the most experienced engineers that will see exactly the same thing that you see at the same time.
It became extremely clear right away that I can rent a brand new container of your choice between 35 to 65% less than what it's currently costing you to use the Blue Wrap.
If a hospital would outsource their sterile processing department to a company, what kind of demands would they have towards that company? They would have full traceability. They want everything on time. They've got service level agreements. They got everything. You do it because it costs money. And then you have your SPD in the basement. It's your own family doing that, and all the rules are gone.
You know, how do we take care of people? And I believe if we take care of those people, they're going to take care of us. And the leaders are going to look awesome and get raises and bonuses and everything else that we deserve because of the hard work we do. But it's not because of us, it's because our people feel good about what they're doing.
If I ever want to elicit a very angry glare from a rep, all I have to do is mention sending a product of theirs out to a third-party repair company. And, of course, they're always going to give me this really, horrible story about some product that was, MacGyvered back together.
We go and validate our own instructions for our own device, and it's trying to get out of that silo and maybe provide some guidance that, hey, this would be a lot easier if we just validated toward this AMI protocol than trying to come up with our own. I think it's a win-win-win. The regulators want it, healthcare facilities want it, medical device manufacturers want it. It's just not an easy thing to do.
I got to tell you the story. I got a 10-year-old daughter. When I come home every day at dinner, 6:30, she calls me Nessie. She goes, Nessie, tell me, how many lives did you save today? How many lives did you change? Tell me out of all the cases, like if I'm the doctor, It
is not unusual in my experience for users to state they have not read the IFU, they cannot recall ever having seen the IFU, and they do not sometimes know where the IFU is kept. We believe this should occur during the staff onboarding and training.
There's a decision to make. Either we're going to pay on the front end and let's hire the staff to get the job done, or you're going to pay on the back end and these patients sue you because you did something wrong and you didn't follow the IFU.
I think there just has to be stronger support there to help these chapters get through these transitions, as well as just continuing to help them build or gain strength in their territory, in their area.
Now, I know a lot of history goes into these instrument sets and to what the doctors want, but specialty instruments can be compared effectively without affecting surgeon preference.
Nobody wakes up in the morning and says, you know what, I'm going to go be a sterile processing tech and I'm going to do a really crummy job today. We learn from those who train us. And maybe it was that way 10, 15 years ago, and we haven't really looked at the manufacturer's guidelines. We haven't stayed up to date on evidence-based practices such as your AMI guidelines, your AORN guidelines. It's kind of evolved that with that additional knowledge, they started uncovering processes that were broken. And with those came more findings.
China is starting to put more stringent guidelines for protecting workers than something we have here. You can die from just breathing regular air in China, but yet in hospitals, they're now mandating monitoring all of these chemicals. So we have a new R&D project because we have to actually filter out all this other crappy air. So the specificity that's required is actually quite a technical achievement. We're in the lab developing filter technologies to filter out all the carbon monoxide in the air so we can monitor the ethylene oxide.
Watching a few YouTube videos, seeing the impact that we have, it's a natural thing you want to talk about. If I see something cool on social media, I'm going to go to my sister, I'm going to go to my friend and say, whoa, did you see? And then that's going to trickle down. If you don't know about merchant ships, dig in a little bit. The mission is amazing.
I always say, Hank and Justin and Michael, you can't clean what you can't see. And too many times, we're throwing brushes down lumens that are 1.5, 2 millimeters. You don't know what's down that lumen. That's why they have microscopes on every workstation.
A lot of the Facebook groups I'm on are asking questions all the time. What are the IFUs for this? Have you guys ever seen this? Is it hand wash? What are the disinfectants you can use on this? I see these questions all the time, and I thought it might be a good place to do social media in the app where you can actually ask sterile processing professionals and we can answer those kind of questions.
Sterile processing, it's such a vital function to patient care and safety. But from what I hear, the vast majority of healthcare leaders just don't understand its value. And therefore, they don't want to invest in its people, processes, or technology.
There's a lot of things where a rep needs to be there, and there's a lot of situations where a virtual reality situation can help to resolve the situation.
First of all, I'm very impressed with the fact that you had RO feeding your boilers. That's very rare, and that's something that I think people should start to consider doing. And the law in Britain is that you do steam quality testing annually, and you also revalidate your sterilizers annually. I didn't say re-verify, I didn't say requalify, I said validate. Every year, and they start at square one, make sure that it's the same sterilizer that you ordered, that it does what it's supposed to do, and they actually do qualification testing all the way up to and including biological testing and parametric monitoring and temperature mapping and so on. It's quite a production.
Managers were actually using students as technicians to do the work, and nobody was checking their work, and so the ORs started stepping in and saying, no, we don't want students in our facilities anymore. And where other schools are still having a hard time getting students in, luckily for us, we're having hospitals open their doors to us. She had that passion, and it took probably about 2 years, but after 2 years, I had that full-on passion, had an opportunity come to advance. I had to get certified. I got that certification. I never got that avenue because I was going to become a lead, never did become a lead. No, instead, within 4 months, I ended up becoming a supervisor instead.
Really, you could go out there if you want to and put together a detergent and brand it as Beyond Clean. Put it out there. There's very little regulation about what you do with the product, how you construct the label, and the only thing you cannot say is that it kills or inactivates any organisms. Sterile processing itself has very little ability to affect the problem of dried soils. It's really all the other departments that must work together to help Central Sterile to have a better process when the instrumentation finally arrives.
I think quality sometimes comes with this connotation of a delight factor. It just feels right in my hands, or that clicking sound that it makes when I turn the rotation just sounds like quality. That's nice, and it's our job to delight our customers as much as we can, but acceptance criteria can be different. Acceptance criteria are measurable specifications.
I don't think a lot of people want to talk about this, but I really feel the majority of the challenges that we see today in sterile processing is a lack of understanding by administration of the importance of sterile processing, and I don't understand that.
Don't allow them to confuse you or frustrate you, because it's when that syndrome starts that individuals who are highly intelligent, who know their craft the best, start to really double talk and not make sense, to the point where it's questionable whether they really know their job or not.
We need to know what's causing a blood clot. We need to know what's causing a granuloma. We need to know why that darn adhesion formed in the first place and obstructed that bowel. It's something we have to have a burning desire to understand and alleviate.
In my experience, what I have seen to be the leading cause of wet pack is oversaturated steam. And this is steam coming from a boiler or from a generator. The facilities folks that are in charge of those things take care of them. That's their baby, and they'll tell you that they've got the best steam that there is, that you don't have to worry about it. We test it, we test the water and all of these things. But that boiler may be across the facility from the sterile processing department. There may be pipes that are older than we are that are carrying that steam to us. And so the longer that steam has to travel, the more energy it loses over that distance.
If you think that because you're using ATP that you are aligning your efforts with infection prevention, you're being misled. I advocate to have ATP monitoring have an adjunct to that, which would be microbiological swabbing, or some other method that would help complement and validate your ATP results at minimum.
When we marched out the cost per case that we're losing, now we do about 19,000 cases at our two hospitals a year. We're losing, about almost $1,000 per case in hard waste and incapacities. There's 51 million surgical operations that get done in ORs in this country. If you march out these numbers, this is a $50 billion waste problem that we actually have the informatics and know-how to solve. If you look at something like diabetes or Alzheimer's, which each are $250 billion in cost a year, and you accept that sterile processing as a space in healthcare is at least $100 billion space a year, this is actually the one area of medicine I know that we have the capacity to solve in the next 10 years.
You two are going to help get the profession where it needs to be.
over the next many years. And keep this stuff up.